So in the end of our last video, we talked about fragmentation. Now we're going to work on explaining major approaches to habitat conservation. How can we mitigate that fragmentation? So what are the strategies to sustain biodiversity? We fragment populations all the time by creating new edges. In order to help alleviate this, we can create what are known as movement corridors. These are narrow strips of habitat that connect isolated patches. Here you can see a big grassy area going underneath a bridge. Now, that bridge, that roadway could serve, or that train way may serve as a natural boundary. It fragments two populations. If you try and cross the road, you get run over and killed. The end. Likewise, you can see a canal here through which fish might travel from one part of a river to another part. We've created purposefully these movement corridors to allow organisms to move freely throughout this habitat so that they are not fragmented. They can breed with each other. Genes can flow. Movement corridors promote dispersal and thus reduce inbreeding among declining populations. Fragmentation leads to homozygosity. Movement corridors can lead to heterozygosity. Another way that we can preserve habitats is by preserving what are known as biodiversity hotspots. We cannot save everything. There are going to be competing human needs that need to be taken into account. We will grow. Our populations will grow. So we need to focus on preserving those areas that will have the greatest impact. A hotspot is an area that has many endemic species. An endemic species only lives in that particular area, as well as many endangered species, species on the verge of extinction. Here you can see a map of the world indicating a lot of global hotspots. You'll notice that a lot of this is taken up by tropical regions in South America and Africa, as well as Indonesia and the oceans. Preserving these smaller regions is going to have a much larger impact than preserving regions outside of these areas. Coral reefs disproportionately serve as hotspots in aquatic ecosystems. They're fisheries. It's where baby fish go to live. They have a lot of diversity. You can see lots of different colors in a coral reef. By removing the coral reef, or by not protecting coral reefs, you lose the place where baby fish hide. And if you lose the place where baby fish hide, they can't grow up to become big fish that can themselves reproduce or themselves end up on your kitchen table. So by protecting areas like coral reefs, which are a big focus, you can help protect the fishery industry. If we lose the coral reefs, it's estimated that we will lose fish. Literally, the fish in the world will go extinct within 50 years. Virginia itself has several natural reserves. These are protected islands that have a lot of high biodiversity. You can see them located on this map of Virginia. There's several regions in Virginia: the Shenandoah region, the Shenandoah Valley, the northern region, the mountain region, the Chesapeake Bay region, the eastern shore, the southeast region, the southwest region. These are the stewardship regions that the government has broken apart and said, we have to maintain biodiversity in these certain areas. And you'll notice that the red and the blue spots have been designated as biodiversity hotspots. These are protected areas. Typically, you're going to see parks form around those. So hotspots make an ideal choice for natural reserves all over the world. If you can find a hotspot with high levels of biodiversity, you can protect it, allow people to visit but not harm it, and maintain biodiversity that can be exploited in the future. It's important to note, though, that natural reserves has a bias. They are typically biased toward vertebrates and towards plants because that's what people care about. They like cute, fluffy things they can pet. They like beautiful things they can look at. Natural reserves, nature reserves, tend not to favor organisms that are microscopic, and they tend not to favor organisms that are ugly. Aquatic bioreserves are becoming vital to commercial fishing interests. These are areas throughout the world where there's a proposal that we need to ban fishing in these regions. These regions, again, disproportionately serve to act as fisheries for baby fish, kelp forests or coral reefs, and though there are a lot of fish here, the reason they're there is so they can reproduce. If we catch them before they reproduce, they can't reproduce and their numbers decline. This is why fish numbers are declining very rapidly. It's also why fish prices on fish keeps going up higher and higher and higher. We are losing our fish populations. We have to protect them, or this global market, this global economic engine will cease to work. So if we close fishing to areas where fish spawn, overfished populations can begin to recover. We saw this happening up in Alaska with salmon fishing. There was a protection for salmon runs set in place in 2008, 2010. And we started to see salmon populations begin to increase again. As those salmon populations increase, there are more salmon caught, the price of salmon decreases, and the population is sustainable. Recently, however, those same protections have been revoked. And what immediately happened was the salmon populations decline, we see rising salmon prices, and once again salmon become not necessarily endangered, but in danger of a population of their population declining very rapidly, unsustainably rapidly.